Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on Project Cars 2 once more, tackling the snowy Nurburgring. My vehicle of choice is the much requested Group A Nissan Skyline. Now I have tended to avoid using this car up until now, seeing as it is all-wheel drive, and, well, theoretically, the all-wheel drive Skyline would have a massive advantage. I mean, the whole premise of the series, it initially started out as a little all-wheel drive Audi hatchback, going quicker than various race cars and so on. But people were curious as to see how fast a car like this might do. Of course, that traction is going to be huge. All-wheel drive grip is going to be massive, a massive help coming out of the corners. However, there are a couple of things that perhaps work in the favour of the Ford. I mean, the Skyline doesn't have a huge amount of grip, and while it was a pretty high-tech racing car, it's not as high-tech as a modern Ford GTE car. So downforce-wise, this won't have as much. And there is still, of course, a finite level of grip through the corners. There's still a finite amount of grip that the Skyline can get. It might be able to get on its power very soon, but we could get on the power pretty well in the Ford. So it'll be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see. I mean, braking-wise, we're still going to have the difficulties of it's on snow and ice and slush and whatnot, and it's not very nice. It won't slow down particularly well. So yeah, we will find out. Now, the boost pressure, of course, as per the rules, everything has to go up to 100%. So, I mean, turbos, will they cause any potential issues? It's less likely in this. Being all-wheel drive, we're less likely to see the turbo suddenly spooling up and kicking in, actually causing problems, because it's unlikely to spin the wheels in the same manner. I've got one lap around this snowy Nurburgring, and 8:44 is the time for the Skyline to try and beat. There's already been a little bit of lockup. Are we going to have rear-end grip in this car? Yes, relatively speaking. Certainly the rear end's not trying to come around on me as I go to turn into these corners, which is what I want to know. That's what I want to be feeling. Oh, hello. Okay, so we lock up very, very easily here. Very, very easy to lock the front brakes coming into some of these corners, so we're going to have to be very, very mindful. We'll be very, sort of very tentative on the brakes. Now, I can, of course, be very aggressive with the throttle. So far, I've been stamp on the power out of all of these corners. We have had an all-wheel drive car go before in the case of that Turbine Lotus. The Turbine Lotus just didn't really turn very well through the corners. Now, again, we've got a lot of traction, that is true, but I still don't want to get airtime in it, and I'm still not sure quite how much grip we are going to have. The back end is still going to move around a little bit out here. We're going to have to be a touch careful with the Skyline. What are we doing speed-wise? Now, we have been seeing speeds of, well, I mean, around the 150 mile an hour mark from the likes of the Ford. So then this isn't getting up to, and at the end of the day, okay, it's got 500 horsepower. It's a good amount of power, you know. Don't get me wrong, that's a good amount of power, but it isn't going to be the most powerful vehicle that has gone around here. We're going to get a little bit of a wiggle eye out the other side. Yeah, I mean, it's whoa. To be fair, like the McLaren had very little in the way of actual traction issues. The F1 Longtail that went out last time, the GT1 car, didn't actually have much in the way of traction issues. Okay, it did when we got down to the really slow corners. That issues all came from the back end being very lively, the back end moving around quite a lot through low speed stuff. Even off power, the McLaren would. This isn't. This, I mean, I can make the back end step out, but it doesn't move around with the off throttle and so on, which is very... It's nice. It gives me confidence in the car. It gives me confidence to actually drive the car a little bit harder in places. And when you've got one lap of the Nürburgring, when you've got that solitary lap to try and find speed, it's important to be able to have confidence in the vehicle. It's why the Ford was so very quick, because it was easy to build up that confidence in that car. I trusted the car to stick to the road. For the most part, I'm trusting this. Again, we are basically full throttle out of every single corner. I've not had any issues at all with it breaking traction. The rear does move around, yeah, just the tiniest bit, but it's not sort of big, leery slides, although we don't want to go playing with that wall in particular as we head up towards the hairpin. Now, I don't know what this is going to be like when it comes to the low-speed stuff here. Again, we're not likely... It's not oversteer that I'm particularly worrying about now with this, although we are going to get a bit of a slide there. Can control that one. The turbos, not an issue. Ooh, although braking as we go over a bump, that could quite quickly become an issue. Thankfully, we managed to catch it all back up. This car is actually one of the heavier vehicles that has got... I know that's strange to say. This is, what, 2,800 pounds? It is probably one of the heavier vehicles that has gone around here. There's been a lot of crazy cars, a lot of them very light, and this, perhaps that little bit more weight, that little bit more stable, is sometimes a good thing, again, for what we're doing here. That little bit more stability is quite nice. Now, we're going to have not too much in the way of oversteer, not too much in the way of, well, moving around. Can I... Oh, I don't know if I even dare be... I don't even know if I've got the grip to be flat through these corners, and I definitely don't want to trundle off towards the Armco. We're going to have a little bit of a lift on the way in, jump on the power on the exit. Yeah, you can just about get away with that, and this is where we then struggle. We're to 134 miles an hour. I mean, it's a good amount of speed, but it isn't as fast as some of the cars that have got around here. That was actually a little bit... That was a little bit slower through there than we ultimately could have achieved, but in many ways better that little bit safe than chuck it in with way too much speed, clunk the barrier and spin. So I'll take a little bit safe in places. There we go. Now back down to the hairpin, chuck it in. Do we have any lariness on the exit? And I can... Actually, these turbos are really not... I was kind of expecting there to be a little bit more in the way of turbo silliness, like the turbos kicking in. And it's not going to be as bad as the Sierra, in which the turbo, with all the boost pressure, basically makes it an on-off switch. But I was expecting there to be, even with an all-wheel drive car, there to be a little bit more noticeable sudden kick from those turbos. It doesn't really do much, aside from if you are at lower RPMs, you don't really have that much power. So you could just about find... Look, if this car was rear-wheel drive, I certainly wouldn't be able to drive it as aggressively as I am here, but it certainly wouldn't be as bad as the Sierra, I don't think, with the way the power is being deployed through the rev range. Ooh, okay. Easy does it into these next corners. Now this is where you get unstuck, even in a good car. This is where you can get unstuck. It's all starting to get technical. There are crests, there are hills, and some of the downhill braking zones. Even with all of the all-wheel drive traction, you're not going to actually be able to do much if you spin it under brakes. That traction isn't going to help you if you're pointing backwards under braking. We can potentially be a bit aggressive there. I don't really want to run on the curb. That bounce shouldn't be as bad in this as some cars. Again, it helps that the Skyline is that little bit heavier. You don't really want cars bouncing around in the snow. It gets unpredictable, and we're okay across there. Yes, it's nowhere near as bad as some cars for clobbering the curbs. Still don't particularly want to. Still don't particularly want to get the car in the air anywhere around here. Nice early brake. I think we might saying getting car in the air. It was probably the closest we got to airtime down there in this series so far. I am working a decent amount to keep this car on the on the straight and narrow, shall we say. Even with that traction, it's not like I'm fighting it to stop it having a tremendous crash, but you are just working a lot. You are just working a lot to try and get it through these corners. I mean, time-wise, I'm not sure quite how I think we're doing pretty well in terms of the time. I don't know where I was at what point with the Ford. It's going to be... I think it's going to be a decent time for this. It might be pretty damn close because, of course, this isn't going to have much speed. It's going to be decent down the straight, but it's not going to be as fast, potentially, as the Ford or the Formula X or those sort of cars. It's not going to be cracking 200 miles an hour here, so we can potentially be braving those final corners. There we go. We've got a minute to get down towards the finish line. Now we sit and wait. What are we going to top out at in the Skyline? As I've said before with this series, of course, cars running on the snow, on the ice, tyres have a reduced top speed. I would imagine the added friction is going to slow the cars down. So we're stuck at 153 in this car. It may well do more than that in dry conditions. 154 miles an hour. Oh, I think we are on for a pretty good time if we can get the braking right, if we can get the power down out of these next few corners. But we have got to get the braking spot on down here, and it is always dicey trying to brake and turn when you're on the snow. That is not what you want to be doing. First gear around here, it's going to be really close for the Skyline. Come on, Nissan. Come on, Nissan. Put your foot down out of here. It's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. It's a 46.2. And it's going to be in the wall because I can't stop it after the finish line. Oh, that was a good lap. That felt like a good lap around the Nurburgring. That felt like a good lap around the Nurburgring, but it doesn't beat the Ford. I am quite surprised by that. I am quite surprised by that indeed. It won't go to the top of the table. It will go second, though. It beats the Formula X by a tenth, less than a tenth of a second. Christ. Of course, that all-wheel drive traction and the composure of the car, even when off-throttle and so on, is very nice. You can jump on the power immediately, but the ultimate grip, the ultimate level of grip that you get from that Ford GT, it's just that little bit more. You can carry a bit more corner speed, and the Ford was still good. It wasn't all-wheel drive good, but the Ford was still very good at getting its power down. The Formula X was a bit of a faff. It wiggled and wobbled and moved around quite a lot. Not as bad as the Formula A, but it did still manage to get its power down, and of course tremendously fast down that long straight. Yeah, the Skyline can only manage a second place. I'm a little bit surprised. I knew that the Ford, I knew the Ford was a good car. I knew that the Ford's downforce and sort of corner speed, it could probably generate more grip through these snowy turns. I thought just that sheer traction from this Skyline would be enough. I really did think the sheer traction was going to be enough for the Skyline, but that is not the case. The all-wheel drive Group A touring car is quick and it is a lot of fun, do not get me wrong here. This is a lot of fun to drive around here. But it is not going to be enough to see it to the top of the table. I mean, that goes to show just how bloody good that Ford is. That's, yeah, well done. Well done to the Ford. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.